Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make beef stew. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. Today we're skipping the sugar and we're going to be making something nice and savory. It is a chilly day here today, so I want to make a nice, cozy bowl of beef stew. I think you're going to love this one, so let's go ahead and get started. Now my stew does cook mostly in the oven, so you're going to want to arrange a rack to the center of the oven and preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so before we begin, we are going to season our beef and dredge it through some flour. The easiest way to do this is in a paper bag, or in my case, a Ziploc bag. Now here I'm just going to combine a half cup of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of salt, this is just table salt, and a half teaspoon of ground black pepper. I'm just gonna shake this up. Zipper it. I just wanna get the salt and pepper nicely distributed with the flour. All right, now let's talk about the beef before I go any further. We are going to be using 2.5 pounds of chuck roast beef. Now, you want to look for a nicely marbled piece of beef that's going to give you a lot more flavor in your stew, and you want to avoid using stew meat. Stew meat, already cut up for you. You can usually find it in the butcher or meat section of your grocery store. It's not going to have as nice of a flavor. I recommend avoiding that. I've cut the meat into about 1.5 inch cubes. Some of them are a little bit on the larger size. And I'm just going to add these in to the bag with my flour. And we're just going to shake this up until all of the meat is coated on all sides with the flour mixture. All right, now over to our stovetop. So for today's recipe, you're going to want a large oven-proof pot. I recommend a large Dutch oven. I love this one. I'll make sure to link to it. It's important that it be oven safe because we're going to be baking it in the oven, and you want to make sure it has a lid as well. We don't need that yet though. Now we're going to add just a tablespoon of oil to the pot. We'll heat this until the pot is heated, and this oil should be nice and shimmering before we go any further. I'm just gonna tilt this a little bit to make sure that oil is evenly covering the pan. Okay, once the oil is shimmering, we're going to start adding our beef. Now it's very important that when you add this beef, you hear a nice sizzle. I wanna see if you guys can catch this on my microphone. If you don't hear the beef start to sizzle, it's a good sign your pan is just not hot enough yet. We're going to be very careful that we do not overcrowd the meat. So I'm going to work in batches. I usually cook this in about 3 parts, making sure to leave space between the pieces of meat. And once I place it in the pot, I am not going to touch it for about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not going to disturb it because I want it to sit there in constant contact with the pot, which is going to give it a really nice sear and some nice deep browning. That browning is going to be essential for a rich, deep flavor. Okay, so this has been cooking about 3 minutes. When I take a look at it, it should be a nice, deep brown. See how nice and golden, or it's not even gold, it's just brown, but it's not burnt. You do not have to sear the beef on all sides. We're just going to be searing it on 2 sides. All right, once we have a nice, deep golden brown color, we're going to remove the beef to a plate. You wanna make sure yours has some kind of edge to it or lip to it, because the beef is going to create some juices while it's sitting. You wanna save all those juices. You don't want them spilling all over your counter, and you wanna collect them. We're gonna add them back into the stew in a little bit. Now, before I add my next batch of beef, I am going to add a little bit more oil, not quite a tablespoon. Let that heat up, and then I'll add the next batch of beef. Now I've emptied this bag of the beef, but I still have a little bit of excess flour here. Should have about a tablespoon. I'm gonna hold on to this, that way I can use this a little bit later on in the recipe. If you wanna discard it and just use a fresh tablespoon of flour, that's fine too. All right, I'm removing the remainder of this meat from the pot. Then I'm going to, it's nice and golden. I'm gonna turn my heat down to medium, and I am going to immediately toss in a tablespoon of butter. So once that butter is nicely melted, I'll add my onion, and today I am using 1 cup of chopped onion. This is yellow onion. If you don't want to use butter, you can just add another splash of olive oil. The important thing is that we're adding some kind of fat into the pot. We're going to cook this until it's softened, which just takes about 3 minutes or so. Our onion is nice and soft, so now we're gonna add our garlic. This is 1.5 tablespoons of minced garlic. Add that in there. And I'm going to stir this frequently as well and just cook until the garlic is fragrant. Generally, this only takes about 30 seconds. All right, next is our tomato paste. We're using 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Add this in, the rest of my ingredients. And before I go any further, I want to caramelize the tomato paste a little bit, which is going to really help develop the flavor of this stew. We're building the stew on a lot of different flavors here, which is why we do things in the order we do them, like searing the meat and cooking the onions the way we do, and now caramelizing the tomato paste. This is just really going to give it a much better flavor than if you just tossed everything in the pot and let it sit for a couple hours. You'll know the tomato paste is properly cooked and we're ready to go into the next step when it starts to turn a little bit more brown. It loses that bright red color. All right, after about 60 seconds of cooking, the tomato paste has lost that bright red color, so I'm going to add the flour, which is going to help thicken the stew perfectly. We're not going to add a lot. The stew's already getting a little bit from the beef, but I'm going to sprinkle a tablespoon of flour over my other ingredients. I'm going to stir until this is completely absorbed, and then I'm going to continue to cook it for, again, about another minute because we're going to lightly toast that flour. All right, now I talked about building the base of this stew. We're going to be doing that next with wine. You need 1 cup of a dry red wine. I'm using Merlot, and I'm just going to very slowly drizzle this in while stirring. This is our deglazing step, which is breaking up all of those browned, burnt on bits that have happened on the bottom of the pan. Those are flavor bombs. We want to work them into our stew. We don't want everything to burn to the bottom and we lose all the flavor there. No, we want that in our stew. And as I'm adding the wine, the heat from the stovetop is cooking everything together, and you're going to notice that it thickens a little bit. I like to cook the wine until it's a little bit thickened, a little bit reduced. It should look nice and glossy and almost velvety. Hopefully you can see what I mean on camera. It should have a nice, smooth consistency, and it shouldn't be super watery. So this is going to steam as it reduces and we cook off a bit of that alcohol. And once I'm happy with how it looks, and like I said, a little bit thickened, glossy consistency, I'm going to add my Worcestershire sauce. We're using 2 tablespoons. Stir that in. Okay, so we're gonna add our beef broth, but I wanna minimize the splashing and splattering, so I'm going to add my veggies first before there's a ton of liquid in here. So I have 1.5 pounds of potato here. You could use unpeeled Yukon Gold potatoes, they're a great choice, or I like to use these little tiny baby potatoes. I think they're called gemstone potatoes, but they work really nicely too, and there's less cutting involved. I also have a pound of carrots. I have peeled these carrots because it's just going to give you a nice pop of orange color in the stew if you peel them first. You're not required to peel them though, I just do it for looks. I've cut these to be about 1-inch pieces. Cut them on a bias because that looks a little bit more fancy. Add those. Then we'll add 2 celery stalks, which I have cut into the same size and shape as the carrots. And we will add our beef that we cooked earlier. And again, any juices that are on this plate, you want them in your stew. Also going to add another ½ teaspoon of table salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. And I am going to slowly drizzle in 4 cups of beef broth. I'm going to stir everything together. And I'm also going to add my herbs that I'm using. We're going to use 3 bay leaves. If you have large bay leaves, just use 2. Mine are kind of small, so I'm using 3. 5 sprigs of fresh thyme. If you only have dried herbs, I will include notes in the description on how to use dried ones, and just a sprig of rosemary. Now I want to tuck those herbs in so they're not sitting on top where they could get burnt. Make sure they're submerged. And I also want to make sure that as much of the beef, I want to make sure the beef is submerged too. Not everything is going to be covered, that's fine, you just do your best. All right, now grab your lid and we are going to slightly offset this. Basically we're leaving it cracked. Turn off my stovetop, and I'm going to take this over to my 325° Fahrenheit preheated oven. I'm going to cook it in the center rack just like this for 2 to 3 hours. After 2 hours, I start checking the beef. What we're looking for is beef that is super tender and falls apart when you touch it with your fork. All right, this has been in the oven for about 2.5 hours now. So let's take a look at the beef. The important thing is that the beef is super soft and tender. I just take my fork and I want to make sure that I can very easily pull it apart. Make sure I'm showing you on camera. So hopefully you can see this meat is just falling apart here. So that's how I know that it's done. Now we're going to pull out the bay leaves and the thyme and the rosemary, and we're gonna discard those if we can find them. Give everything a nice stir. Make sure you're happy with the consistency. I have found that this stew makes a perfectly thick broth without being too thick, but if you find that you want yours to be a little bit thicker, just pop it on the stovetop and simmer until you have the thickness you're looking for. All right, I'm just gonna make myself a small bowl of this now because I am going to be having a large bowl of it for dinner tonight, which I can't wait for. And that is how you make my favorite beef stew. I hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe, and if you try this one, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. One more tip for everybody who's watched to the end. If you ever taste this stew and it's not exploding with flavor for you, probably just needs a little bit more salt. Always taste test and add salt and pepper at the end as needed. It makes such a difference. This is perfect. Wet sock _ Sam. That's how I feel. When people have spirit animals, I have a spirit sock, and it's wet. Hi, Bria. Is it really? There's no way it's as good as this one.